Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So this episode I'm calling Neofascist Psychology is built around expelling social poisons, fears suffocation by prosocial action. So this is a commentary or a rephrasing of some ideas I've either sort of advanced in a kind of as a side note in other episodes of Politics 2100, and this is a continuation of the theme of the last several episodes about sociopathy and the embrace of sociopathy. I made a differentiation between different types of sociopathy. One I called criminal sociopathy. The other I called normal capitalist sociopathy, and sociopathy being this tendency for people to do antisocial things, to be antisocial, and there are what's notable about the right wing, and this is something observed by Altmaier in his studies of what he called right-wing authoritarians about 25 years ago, psychological sort of personality studies of, or political psychology, you could say. And he noticed that the leadership of the right-wing or right-wing authoritarians tend toward sociopathy, toward antisocial behavior and antisocial attitudes, and which is surprising given the previous theories about authoritarian personality, but is not surprising if you look at the reality, the empirical reality of who advances to the leadership of right-wing authoritarian movements, and how they act and so forth and so on. But I am advancing here an idea that unites the two types of psychology or personality that Altmaier observed, in that the authoritarian leaders tend to be antisocial. They see their leadership and their role as a game, as a way as a con of the gullible followers, the followers who are sheep, and are the most, in a way, most suggestible and vulnerable people in society, who nevertheless glom upon these purveyors, including in the media purveyors. So there's antisocial, you could say, lie-based or untruth-based media that just generates stories, a propaganda that's like Fox News and its imitators, and also other print media and so forth and so on, internet stations, you could say, that provide a similar ecosphere, information ecosphere that shapes a untruth-based psychology, or untruth-based information system that then supports the psychological needs of this group of followers and tries to keep them wrapped in this bubble. But what I'm pointing out here in this episode is that there is a common thread, or there's a bond. They're not just simply dupes. That what I'm calling neo-fascist psychology, you can call it right-wing authoritarian psychology, it's built around the idea that you need to expel poisonous thoughts. So poison being antisocial, negative, angry, rageful thoughts and feelings, okay, that you are filled with them inside, and you want to express them, but you can't. And a lot of those are racist. A lot of it's about other people, or people who look different from you, or at least those people become the objects for your rage and your sense of inadequacy, or sense of frustration, or sense that life has dealt you a bad hand. And some people in this group have actually, experienced those things. They're not people who necessarily have had an easy life in one way or another. There are many people who have very hard lives in that group of the base of the right wing. So they haven't had the kind of hard lives that people who are experience racism. So that's a different kind of adversity. But they have experienced other kinds of adversity. Some of them, and others are simply those who want to play along with this game, so to speak. And so this is the sort of the right wing leader, the con person, the con man, the who sees basically a bunch of dupes in the followership of the right wing, a bunch of people they can milk for money and so forth and so on, or just power. And followership, and the uses of that in a political and in the internet, world of gaining subscribers and so forth and so on. So anyway, but the theme is, though, that the right wing or the right wing leaders are giving license to or permission to people who feel this rage to vent it at these outsider groups, or even inside. It could be also insider groups, but groups who are, considered to be the, whatever it is, the enemies, or the non-traditional people, the people who are trying to change things one way or the other, who are trying to make things different, make things quote unquote better. But they are considered to be always, or those people who have the either woke ideas or the ideas that society could improve, that things could be better, that those people are a problem because they threaten people, these people who want to push out these poisons. They want to have a sense of freedom, the idea of freedom for them. And that's why one of the reasons why freedom is so important to them. They want to be free to push out these poisons onto others and get them out of themselves, so that they feel like they're going to drown in these feelings, these negative feelings. And so, the attacks on political correctness that have come for decades now, and now wokeness and so forth and so on, and the way that a typical right-wing discourse is structured is that they find the supposed idiots, who are proposing that society could be better, or that we could meet the climate crisis, or whatever it is, that they are that they're going to, try to do something better, and that you need to fight those people because they are stupid, and they don't understand that there are eternal verities, and eternal verities being, among others, that the people who are filled with hate and are right, and who think of themselves as superior to other people because of their biological identities, and that they're somehow traditional core, whatever it is, that they are close to the what they consider to be the original idea of the United States, or the original tribe of the United States, or tribes, and that they feel like they need to find others to push out and these negative feelings and thoughts. Anyway, so they feel like that the left wing, what they call the left, or the socialists, or the communists, people who are for pro-social action, that is going to prohibit them from pushing out this poison, that they're going to drown in their own poison, literally, if they don't have this permission slip. And this leader, in the case of Trump, it could be someone else. There could be another person who occupies that position, or in their own particular way. Trump is particularly skillful, even though he's in many ways quite stupid. He also is a skillful manipulator of other people. He also intuitively understands this, and he's living perhaps his entire life in the sense of having this sort of envy and poison and negativity, and that he constantly is pushing out onto other people, and also creating dramas where he like a sort of professional wrestler is sort of expiating, is creating a drama which the other people can identify with, the people who are the bystanders, and can say, okay, he's our quote unquote hero who is working out this drama for us, and he's going to he's going to bully and beat down the people who are our quote unquote enemies. And the enemies are then these people who present the idea of a world where you need to contain, some of this poison, or you need to transform it in some way or another, or you need to or they think that the people on the left deny that this poison exists. And I think there's some people on the left who do fall into the trap of not recognizing the complexity of society, not recognizing the complexity of human psychology, and they have a too schematic view of what is progress and what is going to be a good society, a much better society than we have now. And among other things, I recently talked about the left and right fighting over what is sociopathy, and also that there's what I call radical Rousseauvians. Radical Rousseauvians, there are certain things about humanity or other human beings, or the diversity of humanity, that they don't recognize, and so it's almost impossible for people who are enmeshed in a radical Rousseauvian. Not all the left is what I'm calling radical Rousseauvian, but there are people on the left who are. It's a important stream on the left. But anyway, those people have trouble reckoning with and understanding, and in their ideology, in their framework, certainly they might understand intuitively in some place in their hearts, or they might even flip, and give up their radical Rousseauvianism and become the opposite. And as happened with people like David Horowitz, who was a far left person in the 1960s or 70s, and he flipped over to, and Murray Rothbard, the same thing. These are people who embrace left-wing ideas, maybe radical Rousseauvians. I didn't study their early work so much, but anyway, these are people who obviously went from the left to the right. There are other examples of that. Most of the quote unquote neocons were that type of person. But anyway, to me, it's they did a reversal in a way of they didn't understand the positives of what they previously embraced, or they threw the baby out with the bathwater, however you want to say it. But anyway, they realized that they had, or they needed that political power certainly was moving in the late 1970s and 80s and 90s toward these people who had stood on the sidelines, or hadn't been part of the major dramas of the 1960s and 70s, or at least they were sort of the initiative had been with the civil rights movement, with the gay rights movement, with the women's movement, with the anti-war movement, the anti-imperialist movement in the United States. That initiative had been there, but then they didn't have a strong political program that was able to capture significant portions of state power, or by election. And so the right wing took advantage of and saw that there were ways in which they could manipulate people by appealing to what I'm talking about here, this sense of aggrievement, of what I'm calling poisonous feelings that anyway, but that the left still hasn't quite figured out how to counter, or how to work against, and is now we might be at a point where that program has exhausted itself, the program of the right wing, in which case the left might be able to roll over it. But I don't think that solves the problem of having let's say, a picture of humanity that is realistic, that is complex enough to create a hegemonic political project that is pro-social, pro-freedom, okay, enables people to be free to be themselves and to have a complex psychology and conflictual feelings and so forth and so on, but still realize the general gist of being human is to be part of society. Okay, that there are people who attempt to isolate themselves from society and so forth and so on, but generally to embrace the power and the necessary and the identity actually of human beings as being largely social beings. Okay, we're not the most social of animals, but we are quite social, and so and we have a political movement that has been in power for a long time that is really against it and is making up fairy tales about how, in fact, those dangerous pro-social people, those quasi-Maoists. Now, I use the word Maoist. Some of them don't even know what that is, but that is, to me, the picture of the left wing that they're trying to create, of this sort of cultural commissars and so forth and so on, the Cultural Revolution, sort of a constant moral panic of the left, against everybody else and so forth and so on. Those are things that need to be understood, and I think my framework of understanding it as a radical Rousseauvian position, an extreme position that needs to be fought on the left, and the left needs to come up with, as I'm saying, a hegemonic or embracing that where we understand the complexity of the project of being human beings and so forth and so on, and we then can advance to what needs to be our next evolutionary stage as human beings, because we have to function as a global community to address many of our problems. Not all of them. Not everything needs to be decided on a global level at all, but certain aspects of our physical culture and so forth and so on, we are affecting each other, if we like it or not, because of our, among other things, fossil fuel use, and also the way we farm and so forth and so on, the way we use land, so and oceans and water. So, but anyway, it's no accident in a way. So this is a sub-theme of what I'm talking about here today, is about climate change and is about the transition to a society that doesn't burn fossil fuels, and for that matter, burns wood only in a very circumscribed way, in a very wise way. But even though that's something that we've done for tens of thousands of years, burning things to heat things and so forth and so on, that we need to advance to, as Bill McKibben was recently, and I'll put a link in the description box, was describing this quite eloquently in a podcast with Chris Hayes, and he's written a New Yorker article with this similar idea, and he's someone who's been thinking about climate change for longer than almost anybody who's alive, and I've had my disagreements with how he's politically with how he's approached it, but this is a good thought, at least, that he's had, that there's a transition to a society where we don't burn things, where we don't. And so this is, to me, what I'm talking about in terms of the psychology of the right wing, is the right wing is playing on our habitual use of things where we need to exhaust, okay, the byproducts of them. We need to exhaust the smoke from burning a fire, a little from wood, even wood burning. It's like you could easily kill yourself if you had a wood burning stove and you didn't ventilate your house correctly, or a fireplace. So you kept the vent closed, you could kill yourself and everybody else in the house because of the byproducts of that. Similarly, on a more control level, people burning cigarettes and so forth and so on, and you inhale a certain amount of the smoke from a cigarette, but then you expel the rest of it, or you only use some of it, and you also generally benefit from being in a ventilated place, and certainly the people who don't smoke around you definitely benefit from that. But then you've also, taken into your lungs all kinds of carcinogens and so forth and so on that you shouldn't have done. But anyway, that's part of the whole burning things, let's say, legacy of humanity that we need to overcome, and we need to get control over it. It's not that we will never burn something, we will never have a bonfire, we'll never have a charcoal grill and so forth and so on. That's not, but it's getting control over that inherited legacy, and realizing that we can control, we can decide, those few applications where we need to burn something, but then most of the applications in our lives, we don't need to burn something to cook things or something. We don't need to have an active ignited fire in our of using natural gas most of the time in most habitations or restaurants and so forth and so on. We don't need to have that necessarily, depending on the effect we want to have on the particular item of food and so forth and so on that we are working with. So I'm getting a little bit into the weeds about particular types of burning, but the more important kinds of burning for our society is the burning of oil and gas, for the most part to propel vehicles, and that's a huge amount of work in terms of the number of joules that is done for humanity by burning those things. And those things require exhaust, and the exhaust is not only the stuff you can smell, but also the stuff you can't smell, but that heats the atmosphere, that heats the world by capturing infrared radiation, and so from the sun. So and we're seeing this summer effects that are legion with regard to this. But anyway, so there is a fundamental, there is a visceral resistance to this idea, the idea of a transition to a non-burning society, or society that burns only in a restricted set of circumstances, and that we control, that we use our minds to control, that we use our prosocial minds, our pro-ecological minds too. It's not only about the relationships of human to human, it's the relationship of all humans to the non-human environment, which to some of these people is an enormous, you're already going past their own egocentric view of the world sometimes. I mean, again, I'm being a little bit, I'm somewhat critical and moralizing, and when I say that, but so I'm trying to empathize by talking about. But anyway, there's this fundamental resistance that they feel like they're poison. The poisons that are inside them. There's a metaphor in fossil fuel use. So their rigid attachment to, like the idea of coal rolling, so forth and so on. The idea that you are essentially saying F you to all those environmentalists by having coal rolling is the addition of a smoking burner to your. So in other words, you have the regular exhaust to your mostly a large pickup truck or something, or SUV, and then you add a smokestack where you burn something that creates a black cloud that's quote unquote coal rolling, and so you are creating excess pollution, and you're then flaunting that to other people. And so this phenomenon, it seems to some people it seems insane, it seems ridiculous, but in this world that I'm trying to describe, what I'm calling neo-fascist psychology or right-wing psychology, the idea of having that you want to have this freedom to eject poisons out, and you need to have the sense of that there's a world that's going to accept your poisons, and you want to have the sense that everybody, that there should be no blockage. Okay, in other words, so the idea of suffocating. So you want to prove that there is no blockage by going around with your pickup truck with your additional burning, ignited, whatever it is that you're burning, some maybe coal or maybe some other dirty fuel, and creates a cloud of black smoke. And so, and the symbolism is for you this declaration of being freed of this potentially encircling prosocial movement that's saying, look, this is a problem. Again, this movement is only it's so, in a way, intuitive and quick that the movement has not even gotten to the advocates of the Green New Deal have been accused of all kinds of things when they haven't even said what really needs to happen. And some of the things that need to happen are, for the people with this kind of psychology, a draconian restriction on this idea of this freedom to expel poisons. Okay, to the idea that there's poisons inside, and so anyway, this is I'm speculating here. So, but to me, it seems highly likely that these people feel like they don't want to. The sense of being a good person, that means that you don't expel poison, but you hide it from other people, or maybe you go to a psychologist or a social worker or a therapist to discuss the poison that is inside you, and you try to overcome it in some way or another, or you try to vent it. You develop a discipline of some kind where you go out into the woods and you chop wood or so on, or you get into martial arts or whatever it is, but you channel it away from the important people in your life, from your politics, so forth and so on. You attempt to deal with it in some way or another. So this analog, certainly, that I'm drawing between the knee-jerk resistance to climate action, which involves saying goodbye, mourning a society that burns things to do lots of the work we do, that where we need to, as Bill McKibben was saying in this episode of Chris Hayes's podcast, that we gotta use the sun's inferno, so to speak, the sun's helium fusion reactor in the sky with all its radiation, so forth. We got to use that for almost everything that we do, and that requires a sense of, an expanded sense of what humanity is in terms of, our overall common globe that we live in, that we need to be aware of that. So it's an environment that the people who feel like that the most important thing is to get rid of poisons and to expel them and to find targets for them if possible, but just willy-nilly in a way, and to almost worship leaders who give them this permission because they feel so overwhelmed by the poison. Okay. But anyway, they feel particularly threatened by a movement of people who says, and this movement is small even, and it's not very strong, and it should be a lot stronger, frankly. It should be a lot more powerful. We should be out on the streets. I'm, a part of the climate movement, and I'm trying to work, I'm working with Climate Defiance. I've worked with, other groups before that, and locally and also in national politics, and we're Sunrise Movement and others. So this T-shirt comes from Sunrise Movement, but anyway, we need to be much bigger and much stronger. But anyway, that there's already a phantasmic imagining by these people on the right of a so powerful a movement of people who are trying to, quote unquote, suffocate them in their own poisons, okay, or in the poisons that they find in the earth and burn to, or that the fossil fuel companies find in the earth, and you burn in your car, you burn in your truck, you burn in your whatever your boat, so forth and so on. So and that they imagine this phantasm as being so strong and so powerful, and it's threatening them, and they need to fight back against it. So they exaggerate greatly the power of our movement, the power of people who are the political representatives of our movement. Those representatives need to be a lot stronger and a lot more powerful in terms of, and a lot just sending their message a lot more clearly. And I'm trying here to pioneer some messages for people who later, or to create you could say a far left, whatever, or a radical version of, that speaks to some of the deep fears, okay, of the right wing, and also and I'm saying this, I feel like I'm almost forced to say this because the leaders of the quote unquote left, or whatever, the Democratic Party leadership was not really a left, but it's the leftward part of the established political spectrum here in the United States, are so hesitant and so fearful of these people. And I'm trying to create a discourse where you can understand at least their fears, even if you then push ahead and say, look, we need a climate emergency declaration now. We need the executive branch of the government to be declaring it now. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, they are tardy, they're dilatory, they seem to be shaking in their boots about doing that, and they're not the phantasms of an aggressive pro-climate or pro-social, pro-climate, pro-climate stabilization movement on the left are phantasms right now, or not on the left, in the center, in the Democratic Party, in the current leadership of the current administration, presidential administration in the United States. So they're exaggerated by these right wingers. But in any case, they need to act more decisively. So what I'm trying to do is create a sense of to pull out by talking about what I think is the reality of what these people are so afraid of, saying, look, these people are psychologically wired in certain ways where they need to be addressed a certain way, and they also need to be ignored in other ways. They need to be both addressed and also ignored. And to do serious policy in this area, you need to both be aware of their phantasmic fears, but also not really take them that seriously, and to push ahead. Okay. So anyway, and this is an effort to create some discourse around that in that area. In any case, I'm going to stop here. Please subscribe to Politics 2100 to get a notice of these videos, to help support the channel. Please like this video if it had anything that you can work with in it. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And I look forward to chatting with you in those comments. Also, please, anyway, I think I've said please subscribe. So in any case, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks.